tell my friends stand by me only if I'm right. I come out in triple darkness just to see the light. If I say it once, I guarantee I say it twice. If they want me, I ain't going out without a fight. In my dreams, I'm a killer, but for God, man. Try to play it cool, but it's getting hard, man. Rolling with the real and death to all the frauds, man. Not too many of me, yeah, it's kinda hard, man. In my room, sitting in my room. Know they waiting on me and I'm coming soon. Never been a sellout, never been a coon. Y'all be on the camera acting like I'ma show 'em how true and independent get it. Whole game changed by the time I'm finished with it. We about to get this business handled in a minute.
Welcome to the B2M podcast, where 5 African American men who have been friends for over 40 years, who have a total of 13 combined children, including 12 sons, and been married for a combined 100 years, are getting together to chop it up about parental guidance, Black and brown culture, and all things positive. We are coming to you today from the Code Building in Charlottesville, Virginia. It's a wonderful co-working space for entrepreneurs, for business people looking for some excellent space, and we're glad to have them as one of our sponsors. We're here today. We got a great topic today, John. I got my mom over here introducing to my right, John J.G. Yates, Talik and Joaquin Wayne, and my man Jay Moo over there on the other side. John, what we getting into today, brother?
Hey, bro, we received multiple emails about challenges as a parent. A lot of different specific topics, but we're just going to talk about what our biggest challenge is or was as a parent, being a parent.
All right. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yes, sir.
Can you just say,
Parenting
just being a parent is the biggest challenge?
In general, exactly.
Yeah.
piece of cake.
Yeah.
Cool.
No.
Wow, what's your biggest challenge, bro? What you have to challenge with? Used to?
It's numerous challenges that I feel like I had personally, and I'll talk about them throughout the show. But like the first one I'm thinking of is just as my kids were young, I oftentimes did not appreciate the stage of life they were in. And I was always rushing to get to the next stage. And as a result of that, my kids, they grew up super fast on me. And I never really truly appreciated when they were in kindergarten like I should have. I never truly appreciated, when they went off to school for the first time or when they first got to high school. I just didn't appreciate all the different stages because I did not recognize that the joys of watching your kids grow up, that each individual stage has its separate pleasures. You know what I mean? So as you watching your kids grow up, like you might be feeding them fast or just anything, man, just not really appreciating all the stages as they were growing up and just accelerating the process. And so as a result, I think y'all used to tease me, like my oldest son, Darius, y'all would tease me like, man, Darius an adult,
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Y'all would be like, yo, like when Darius moving out and he 8, but a lot of that was because I was accelerating his maturity and all of that just because I wasn't patient as a father, and that was unfair to him. So I created this, me and my wife, unconsciously, just in looking back, we created a little adult who was 8 years old and mature beyond measure, and so that was it was unfair to him because we didn't allow him to be a child in all those stages as he was growing. But it was unfair to us too because I think, personally, didn't get to enjoy watching them be 7, watching them be 10, watching them play sports for the first time. And when they start playing sports, next thing you know, you're thinking about, well, what you gonna do in high school? He 10. Why you worried about that? And when he in high school, where you going to college? What we gonna do when you get to college? How we gonna do that? Bro, enjoy his high school years, And so that was just something that I am so disappointed in myself that I did. It was unfair to us, and it was truly, truly unfair to him because he didn't just get to be a kid like he should have.
Well, okay, when you say that, how do you know? Has he said something to you as an adult now, and looking back and said something,
I think,
or you just kind of being harder on yourself?
He hasn't said anything about it.
Oh, okay.
But you notice it when you have a really serious child and he's 10.
Like,
Like, bro, why are you so
but
serious?
that could just be how he is, though.
Well, I think
I
it's
think
how
you
he
can be a little
is
hard on yourself
because it's a byproduct of how we were. So, Kari wasn't like that at all. He want to be a kid forever.
But how
because I felt like I made I felt like we made the adjustment.
Oh, when Darius was born.
21, 22?
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I think another thing about my brother, anybody who really know him, he's not fond of the little ones, right? So half of the battle.
Fun fact that you.
Okay. So
he not fond of the little ones.
So my brother,
While he was infants, Tracy was just on her own.
Yeah,
I was helping, but they not my favorite people.
Yeah.
He the only one that don't like babies and puppies.
Yeah, you can't say that puppy thing.
You might get in more trouble for the puppy than the baby.
Hey, our sponsors might drop us.
I ain't got no patience for babies or puppies.
Exactly. But half of the battle is my brother. He don't really like the aspect of the little kids and stuff like that. So I bet in the beginning he was really trying to rush him at least till they get to 5. So
rush him to at least so he can wipe.
And then when he got
to wipe.
Yeah, and then when he got to 5, he's like, oh man, shoot, I gotta rush him to 8. I gotta rush him to 10. Okay, all right, now we can deal with one another now. Oh, he's 10 years old. Okay, dang. And so he's 10 years old, very, very mature. And so that's what I think, half of the battle is in his mind, even though he might not conscious of it, but that's probably exactly what was taking place at the time. He wanted to rush. Now, if you ask his wife, on the other hand, she probably enjoyed every minute of it, but on he wanted to be able to relate to him, and 8 years old, 10 years old was the relating.
When you came home and the family was having dinner, what was Darius sitting there?
Was he sitting or did he have his briefcase?
He was at the head of the table.
He was always at the head of the table.
That's it, y'all, for real?
I got pictures.
No. We did do something at the house. Because this was my seat at the head of the table. Y'all still. We would take turns with both of them. Be like, hey, today you get to sit in the king seat. So when you sit in the king seat, you get to dictate what maybe the conversation might be.
So where's the king seat at, though? I'm saying.
King seat was my seat.
And where was your seat at?
At the head of the table.
So we was telling the truth. So we was telling the truth.
He only got to sit there on occasion.
And look, I wanna. This is light right now, but I wanna, because I heard something that I think is a deep question.
Okay.
As a parent dealing with challenges, and what's most challenging? Why do you think, as black men in particular, or black and brown men in particular, that we want to rush that process with our children? Why do we want them to be so grown? So that's what old folks call it, grown. You weren't describing it as that, but why do we want them to grow up so fast? What contributes to that?
Well, I think not in our case, but I think oftentimes when mom and dad might be working, or single mom working, and he gotta hold it down while I'm not here. I gotta leave him at home by himself for the first time when he's like 7. And so I think as a result of just working and trying to take care, oftentimes we'll accelerate, have them cooking and cleaning and doing all that stuff. And we talked about that before in one of the other podcasts. But those are socioeconomics that contribute to that. But that wasn't the case in our house. I think it was, I just had in my mind, I'm trying to raise this perfect little minion, and I want him to be like this, and I want him to do this and go here and do that. And as a result, it was just, I think when you have your first kid, everybody can tell you, how you raise your first one and how you raise your middle one or your last one is just very different. And obviously they get different parents at different stages because we grow differently. But I think that's a big part of why we do that.
No, I agree 1,000%, because subconsciously, I hate to use a wildlife analogy, but however, some of them things, some certain animals got to be born ready to run, because them predators gonna get you. And so sometimes subconsciously, when you raising young black men, you know you got to be prepared, or them predators gonna get you. And so you be like, let's go, and it's completely unconscious. You know?
That's real.
That's
real.
what I was wanted to get to
That's real.
because I read something. I don't know where it was, but it said, don't focus on giving your children everything you have never had. Focus on teaching them what you never knew.
Oh man, that's good.
Right? And so that's part of it for us as coming from oppressed people with socioeconomic challenges or not. Like, back to your predator analogy, it's like, it's a cold world out here. I got to teach you to be tougher than you probably really need to be.
Right.
I got to make sure you know all of this stuff that you really don't need to know till you about 17. And you putting a lot of pressure on them to comprehend some things in the name of, I got to toughen you up and get you ready, that takes the childhood away from them. Remember Michael Jackson said, have you seen my childhood?
Yeah.
In the song?
Absolutely.
And he was talking about, being a child star. You never got a chance to just be a vulnerable child that doesn't know, that doesn't need to consider all of these larger issues of life that you may not even comprehend. And I just wonder, as a parent, like, the challenge is, and I wanna back you off from being disappointed about it.
No.
Because we all know none of us had a map. And not that you're supposed to get a map, but you were doing the best you could at the time.
Oh yeah.
When you were immature and growing. At 19, your brain wasn't even finished developing yet, as we've been talking
Right.
about.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that hindsight is always 2020, especially when you care. But James, what are your thoughts about the biggest challenge as a parent?
I think, as we kind of touched on it with stages of parenthood, or depending on, again, the first child versus second, third, or whatever, I think each child may pose a challenge. Looking back for myself as a young parent at 17, I had no clue. Of course, you know what I mean. I wasn't even thinking. I was still being parented. You know what I mean? By my own mother. You know what I mean? So the challenge, that was my first challenge as a parent, is really just not even knowing what it was about. And I think
you were 17.
Yes, sir.
Mama was 33.
Yeah.
Right.
34.
Right.
34.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we had mentioned this before as well, because again, I had no clue as far as parenthood with my oldest, Michael. Then married when I married young, about 21, 22, 23, and came into an immediate or instant family, because she had 2 children when we married, and then I had my son, as well. And so that challenge, just trying to balance that blended family piece, was a challenge. And if I had to point out one thing, I think that's consistent with what I've experienced, is the blended family piece. And so with my second, my daughter, Nadira, and then my youngest, Caden, from my second marriage. Again, the blended family piece, because then I've since divorced and remarried, and though the blend, and so him coming into my third marriage now, current marriage with Steph, hey there, it was a bit of a challenge. However, I think I said this in the previous episode as well, that I did my best. I'm doing my best parenting now, but I did my best parenting at 30, because that's when K Moo was born. 30. And then I was at 22, 21. Then of course definitely at 17. So, but if I had to point out one thing, it would be
Blending.
the blended family piece, being my biggest challenge. And that's just tough. If tough on the child. Tough.
Why is it tough?
Well, for one, the divorce piece.
Okay.
It was tough, probably for Caden. And then I wouldn't say it was so tough, because Steph's son, Courtney, he was older, much older when we married. And so it wasn't, that tough. But then Caden being young, I think he was about 5 or 6 when Steph and I married. And just, kind of adjusting to, this or whatever we call it now, the bonus parent or whatever the case. And I think she had said from the onset, if she said if Caden had been a little younger, she wouldn't have messed with me at all. Because she had, almost had this thing of a certain age of children, or that she wanted. Yeah,
You
that
made
she
the
didn't
cut.
want to. Yeah, you made the cut. And so, and she probably, I think she says she kind of gave me a pass in a sense, because she probably really wouldn't have messed with me if was Miss Charm.
Luckily, you turned
If you
the charm
wasn't
on.
charming.
John. So you in a co-parenting situation.
Yeah.
Do you? I'm not asking you if that was your biggest challenges, but do you co-sign what James is saying about the difficulties of it?
Yeah, 1,000%. My biggest challenge is simple as this: protecting my kids. None most important than my kids, and to keep them protected. And so I went through a divorce, and so when you're not in the same household, you can't protect them like you want to. I can't control what happens over there.
Right.
I can't control who come and go. I can't control who she chooses to be with from here on out. And that's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did that, in terms of what strategies did you use in light of not being able to have that control to get as much control as you could?
He threatened the man.
For sure.
He make sure
For
every time
sure.
he meets somebody, he give him the grip.
I'm just messing with y'all.
Hey, well, the truth is, we had an agreement before we bring anybody into our lives, or our children's lives, we bring the other person on board, right? Especially if, hey, this is nothing new while we're together, right? So this is somebody new, and this is how we would do it. You do what you want. You're an adult. I'm an adult, and I have 50-50 custody, right? So you got time to do you. I got time, to do me adult stuff on our own. And so that was the agreement. And so one day I was taking my son to catch the school bus from, his mother's home. And I saw a car in the driveway. And so it took a whole lot of, I was thinking, I was furious. You know what I mean? I'm like, gee, you can do you're an adult. But, have the courtesy to go home. And my son going in there and then going to school. So little did I know, he had, already met him and introduced him, and my sons didn't tell me. And so yeah, that was tough, man. That was tough. And then I was still waiting for the introduction. Then I had to go do it myself,
Right.
And so
that was a little more stern introduction.
Oh.
Did you poke your chest out, or did you?
Hey, look, it was a calm, assertive conversation, and she was like thinking something was gonna happen, and I talked to him, and he was like, I understand. I think I had to have that same conversation myself.
That's good. That's real good.
Is there a difference between calm, assertive, and passive aggressive? I'm just wondering.
Hey, and no, I think when you asserting that you asserting, so you can assert yourself without yelling and screaming. You know what I mean? I don't think that's being passive.
Okay.
If I'm being direct with you.
Yeah, I get it.
And if I'm being indirect and calm, that's passive aggressive.
Yeah.
But if I'm being direct with you, right? And this is how I see it, and this is how, I'll die for my kids,
Because I just think about some of the biggest killers. I think they calm and assertive.
Now, did the size of the individual determine how the conversation went?
Did it matter? Like, did you have a certain shoe on or something? Put like an inch or two on you?
Hey, we probably same size.
But one thing I'd like to point out though is when I asked you that question about control, how many black men are saying when they get to that split position, I want 50-50 custody? Like that was a proactive thing. Like most of us, like, hey, she gone. It's like I'm gonna get her every other weekend. But that was you taking as much control as you could. Like I
wasn't going nowhere until we came to that agreement.
I got you.
You know what I mean? This is non-negotiable.
Right.
This is what's gonna happen. You can do this, but we're gonna have this written on paper.
Right.
And then boom.
And I'm not signing anything.
Yeah.
Talik.
Yes, sir.
On you, man. What's the most challenging thing down in the ATL for you as a parent, man?
I mean, it's different phases. My son the only child, so I just, man, one thing I annoy the heck out of me as a person. just having a very selfish person. And like, my son, if he very selfish, that would have drove me nuts. And so by him being the only child, sometimes that might drift into being, very selfish because you don't have to share with no one, So it was very important for my wife and I to like take him to homeless shelters and stuff and expose him to, mothers and children homeless shelters. And we did a lot of volunteer work. And and then when we got home, we talked about it and we shared these thoughts. And I mean, he was handling himself very well. And I just wanted him to understand that, just because, you don't see these things don't mean these things is not occurring in other people's lives.
Right.
And so that way you'll have, passion, be passionate about, your mission and not being so selfish and thinking about the next person and stuff. So we did that for a while. And then he got a part of this program at school when, that was an assignment that they did. Went to the shelters and fed the homeless and stuff like that. And he really, really enjoyed it.
He already had the experience.
He had the experience, and so I was just, definitely that was just one of my things. I was like, man, how are we gonna teach him how not to be selfish?
So you saw it coming and dealt with it as it was coming.
That's
like,
what I'm
why did you feel like he was gonna be selfish? Or what led up to that?
I'm not gonna say I think he was gonna be selfish, but at the same time, I've seen a lot of single, where children with no siblings,
Only child,
right? And I watch how they move, and I was like, man, they good kids, but boy, I tell you, they selfish as can be.
Hold on. What you
Yeah, I'm
trying to
talking
say,
about
man?
you, John.
Nah, what you trying to
Talking about you.
And so, you gotta teach them how to love. You gotta teach them how to think about other people and stuff like that.
The world can start to revolve around
that's
them.
powerful though, because a lot of times when we do get our children to volunteer, we participate in that stuff. Even though we know it's a great act, we like, hey, we got to give back. We usually leave it at the message that we got to give back. It's not about, like to Khalik's pointing out, it's not about giving back. It's about using it to parent.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful thing, because how can you not, unless you just born the devil,
Yeah.
how can you not be compassionate as a child if you got exposed to service through your family? That's a powerful strategy. I think people need to latch on to, because nothing you can say teaches them more than what they see and experience.
Yeah.
Giving back like that.
And that's teaching the attitude of gratitude at such a young age.
Yeah, right,
as well.
right.
What about yourself, Chubb?
I was thinking about, we were talking about before the episode started, I think I'm going to go with the biggest challenge is me, man against self. Are you being what you should be as a parent? Are you giving the right balance of time? Are you giving the right balance of discipline? And my own anxiety around wanting to be so perfect. That's why I was getting on you. I was like, man, we got to forgive ourselves, because we want to give so much, especially if you were raised without a parent, like a father, right?
Right.
You want to give so much and be so perfect. You know what I'm saying? Back to your minion thing. Like, you want to be so perfect that I think my biggest challenge was forgiving myself for some of the mistakes I was making along the way, because I cared so much. You know what I'm saying?
Trying too hard
and then wondering, man, how is this going to play out that I didn't get this in or get that in? And to your point, Joaquin, is you end up seeing that there's plenty of room for mistakes that you make. You know what I'm saying? So I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform at like the highest level because of what I didn't have. You know what I'm saying? And I think that impacts children in a certain way. Like I was telling Amir once, man, we like, even in sports, right? He had like a strong, extremely strong arm in baseball, right? And me and my brothers all played sports, all played baseball, all loved it. And when I was parenting him around it, and he didn't know his gifts, And he was afraid of his gift in some ways. Like he was the type of kid who was like, man, I throw hard, but when I throw it hard, it hit people sometimes. And I was like, they shouldn't be up there then. if you hit him, it just hit him.
Come with the
Right?
territory.
So me in that area, me trying to get him to perform at his highest level because of what I knew he could get to and what I wanted to share with him, I was putting undue pressure on him. That wasn't the type of thing that was gonna get him to see that he could unleash it.
Yeah.
But I'm going with what we do. My brothers told me, man, throw it. They up there. If you hit him, you hit him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
right,
saying?
right.
You get hit sometimes. So I just think I put a lot of pressure on myself. Even now, man, being a grown man, being able to say, you worry about them so much, right? You know, you worry about what you can't protect. Even as they're adults now, you know, I put a lot of pressure on myself to be there almost in every instance. But when, you know, we talked about sometimes, and I think we're going to get into when to let go. So my biggest challenge, because I think with the stuff that happens to them, we prepare for that, right? Because we've been through a lot of it. You got your feelings hurt, you got your heart broke,
Yeah.
You lost something. All of those things, I'm good. I can help you get through that. But my own anxiety around whether I'm doing enough ended up wearing on me more than it probably should have.
And when you had those challenges and questions, was there anybody you could pick up the phone and call and talk to?
Man, other than rapping to my brothers, like y'all,
I was about to say,
like you know, having that to bounce back, but not really, man, because again, I didn't have uncles, for example.
Right.
You know, that I could be like, hey man, you know, I'm doing this, and they probably could have told me something real quick, like some analogy. I know Joaquin probably got one. You know what I'm saying? They probably could have told me some little quick quote that would have got me right.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you need to hear, man, you're doing a great job.
Confirmation.
Yeah.
Wow. On the right path.
And I can't say that I was hearing that, so I'm my own measure for how well I'm doing. You know what I'm saying?
I think one of my when my son got to middle school, you know, being that we live in the city, man, I had one of my challenges was how to teach my son how to protect himself. You know, because when he got to middle school, I didn't know at the time that the middle school he was at, they were like gang related, like they were recruiting at that age. And I didn't know until I was speaking with his barber, you know, guy that cut my son hair. And he was telling me that one of the police officers that you come in to get his hair done, or, you know, get his hair cut and stuff, that he was saying, man, that school, such as, you know, he was calling out the school name and stuff, and he was like, man, they got a lot of gang going on. I was like, what? And I never seen it, you know, I never seen like the colors, the tattoos. I didn't see any signs of it at school. But however, it was definitely heavy. But and then I was like, man, how do I teach my son how to protect himself? And so it was this one kid that used to pick on him all the time. When he got to 6th grade, I was like, man, look, we can't have this going on. And you know, him and his, you know, my wife, we was talking, and we said, maybe we should put him in karate. You know, she said, well, maybe we ought to put him in karate. And I was like, nah, we ain't putting him in no karate. She was like, why? I was like, no disrespect, but karate teach all these mannerisms and all this nice stuff. And you never ever get a chance to chop somebody. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, nah. I mean, like, they teach a heck of a level of discipline. And you thinking, when you gonna use this stuff? And I see, when I was younger, I seen when my brother was in karate doing it, and I was like, nah, we
didn't
not
work for your brother.
Well, hold on. This is the thing, because Joaquin, in the other episode, we were just talking about Joe Mallory teaching
Kari how to box.
Right?
Yeah,
So-
but Darius did karate.
And Darius did karate, but Joaquin was saying that the karate gave them confidence knowing that they could protect themselves.
Just
if
the
they needed
belief.
to. It
Just
sounds
to
like
believe.
you like, I don't need to at least get a chopper two on.
Nah. Let me tell you something. First of all, as a parent, man, we never want nobody to touch our babies. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't care how old they are; they still babies.
You one of them grown ups that'll fight a kid?
So what? So this is what I told him. I said, nah, we not putting you in karate. By the time they teach you that first move, man, this dude gonna slap you again. We ain't doing that. So it was a boxing gym around the corner. Man, this first day in the gym, man, they were teaching them how to throw a two-piece. You know what I mean? And that's just throwing, your right hand, your left hand. And I said, yo, we on our way. And so he was in class for like a week. And got to school. Here come the bully. You know what I'm saying? He wanted to test my son. And I think he slapped him in the head or do something to him. My son caught him. Wop, wop, right? When he caught him, at the time, I didn't even know all this was going on. So the teacher, when we had parent-teacher conference, she said, we had a little incident earlier in the week, and she said, by the way, your son got a really nice two-piece. I said, what? And so most of the time, this the funny thing. This kid was a problem because any other way, she would have called, got on the phone, and she probably was just so thrilled that somebody did something to this boy because couldn't nobody else handle him.
Let me tell you something. As a former teacher and administrator in school, there were several fights I had. I almost want to get a kid a gift card and whip the bully. He needed that.
And so my son come home, he was like, Dad. He was like, yo, I got street cred. I was like, oh,
now you going.
I was like, man, where do I got my son at? Because I want to keep all the stuff away from him because I know what I dealt with as a child. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't want him to be that type of kid, but I do want him to be able to protect himself.
You didn't want him to be like Show Enough?
I don't know Show Enough, but Show Enough from Leroy.
Last Dragon.
Let me bring it back to a scenario that none of us are dealing with, right? It's for our sisters that are listening that are single parents.
Right.
Like particularly like raising boys or girls. You know, when I look at the challenges of a single mother from the outside looking in, or from my own, and my mom didn't have an issue with this, but I do see a lot of it in these days. I see one of the biggest challenges for single mothers is being able to tell their children no.
Yeah.
To compensate for the absence of the father, for the absence of the man.
That's real.
What do y'all think about that? Do y'all see that as being a big thing with single kids? You either coach or run across single children?
I mean, going back to my situation as far as divorce and co-parenting, it was one of the hugest challenges was the masculine versus the feminine energy, right? And so I know that I can't have a bad day and come home and kick the dogs and kick the kids, even when they're doing right, and I can't have a good day and let them get away with everything because I'm feeling good. Mm. And so we did have that balance. If I was a little off, she got it, and she was a little off, I'm like, I got it. And so you don't have that, and so now you gotta try to always be. We should be in control of our energy anyway, right? But life happens. And if you don't have anybody to balance you, and sometimes that can be overcompensated by overgiving, and giving them stuff they don't deserve. You should have it, trying to overcompensate, But again, that's why we need that balance. And going back to what you were saying, our son's got to be dangerous, right? Most people,
dangerous,
yeah, just a little bit dangerous. That's part of being, that's a part of being masculine, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so people. A lot of times, if it's a bully, if they know you're going to fight, they're going to leave you alone. You know what I mean? Win, lose, or draw. And so that's what you was talking about, too.
And one thing about it, I know you face many bullies. And I, hey, that was one of those things. Yeah. That was one of those things that I had to keep in mind. And so the other thing was just the, I was so glad. I mean, not that he was going to get involved in any of those, gang activities, but you as a parent, it still got to be on your mind, knowing that they recruiting right here in the school, and so that was another reason why when he graduated 8th grade, we put him straight in private school because if they recruiting there, you sure enough know when he get to high school, it's on. You know, and that was no question. You know, we putting him in private school. You know, for
Well,
sure.
I'm gonna take this opportunity real quick to remind everyone
sir.
that the B2M Crew podcast is sponsored by Code-Based Co-working, located downtown in Charlottesville at the Code Building. Code-Based Co-working is an amenity-rich, shared work environment specifically designed to serve business professionals and entrepreneurs. We're here today, the crew, talking about our biggest challenges as parents, and we talked a lot about as children, you know, when they were smaller. And I did allude to a little bit about now that we all have adults, pretty much. What's the biggest challenge now?
Oh, in the pickup on what Corey's saying, I want to challenge you guys. I've been hearing some regrets, sometimes more so than challenges, you know. And I hear you a lot when you're talking about that age group, because the little fella walked in early before we filmed, right? And I see little kids like that, and I'm like, man, that was a good time. That was a good age, right?
Right.
I kind of miss that. I don't want no grandkids, but I miss that.
They coming, bro.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah, God willing.
Pray
Right?
for it, but not now.
Hopefully they come after wives.
And miss that time period. And
Yes.
right now, for me, my baby is senior in high school, right?
Yeah.
And I've been going to all his football games. Wonderful season. Now I'm going. He's not playing basketball, but they basketball team making a phenomenal run. And you know, I met some new parents last night. They was like, I said, my son is a senior. This is my third one. This is my last one. You know, and I'm like, son, come to the game. So he come to some, but not all of them, right?
Yeah.
I said, man, you gotta enjoy this moment. You know, you could be with your peers, and so I was just, when you were talking about enjoying that moment from 3 to 5 or whatever the age, I'm like, you 17, enjoy this run, have a good time with your people, because I'm enjoying it. Because it's my last hurrah, you know, as a parent of a school age, because he's on his way to college, right?
Man,
and so
look,
I'm trying.
Congrats.
It's gonna be all right.
Yeah. Hey, look, I'm looking at all these teams, and I know the seniors
You sitting up
and
in the
guys I
class, you
coached
sitting up
on.
in the stand with tears dropping down your cheek and all that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I was gonna with the challenges I had, or what I was gonna suggest when you mentioned that of a single mom or single
Okay,
parent
yeah.
period, because at the time, as a young single parent, I was, because you know at 17 I wasn't married to anyone or anything like that. I think it's important to be spiritually rooted, or at least have some semblance of a moral code or something, you know what I mean, that you can rely on. And I think what was good for me was at the time that I did try to be a parent to my son, was probably closer to 19. And I look back on it, and what I missed, of course, I wasn't there for Michael's birth, anything like that. So then when we had Nadira, as far as growing and learning from not being at Michael's birth, I was, well, first of all, I did marry. And then when she had Nadira, I was there for Nadira's birth. And then, of course, being divorced, I couldn't be a part of her life the way I wanted to. And so then when Caden came along, I was there at at his birth. I tried, what was those things? They had the baby Bjorn joints. I had my, what I'm saying, the parent just, and so at different stages and levels.
The strap joint with the baby facing walking around.
Yes,
I got you.
Hey,
yes,
James,
the
you
little
ain't had
baby
the
Bjorn.
fake breasts on feeding them
No,
too,
sir,
did
no.
you?
So that time you went to Baby Depot, all the baby
If I had
stores.
any more at that time, no, I probably would have. No, but so when I was listening to Joaquin and to Corey and everything, you learn, from each child how to do and be a better parent for the next. And so that's what I think I was able to do. And so I would suggest for single parents, specifically mothers, that if they could find some, as far as for that, to compensate for no father or whatever being involved, mentorship programs or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
finding, or as you mentioned, I think you didn't have uncles or whatever, but I've admired Joaquin's presence as not only just as an uncle, but when he's shared stuff with us in our in our calls, as we chopped it up before, how he's been just like an older cousin, just a real, what I'm saying, a real good resource, and therefore because he comes from a huge family.
Bro, you understate that.
Yeah, and
Joaquin always got 9 children with him when he was during his parenting. They was his cousin, but it was more so than cousin. It was like dad.
For sure.
Right.
He was like dad to like 9
and
people.
I admired that. Man,
Yeah, right.
And it's funny because my wife Stephanie, she comes from a huge family. It's really all about family, and so I see that with her, and I've learned from that. So you can always learn and draw from other people.
Yeah.
Again, whether it's family that you do have, or if you don't have that type of family and support system, with mentorship programs, whatever the case may be. But for me, it was you guys.
Yeah.
We talk about 30, 40 years of friendship, and I think I mentioned in another episode too, where JG had helped me at that stage of the gap that I missed from Michael at 3. I think he was about 3 or 4 years old. And then we were once his mom moved somewhere, and then I ended up moving down to ATL.
Right.
And that gap, and JG would always, hey man, when's the last time you saw Michael? And so he brought me back to that, and then, what time you gonna see him? When are you gonna see him? Although I then, had that whole instant family piece and blended family.
You ain't listen to us about that, John.
Hey, listen. But that's why I call him John the Baptist, man. I call him John the Baptist because he'll always remind you of what's important about some family stuff, man.
Oh yes.
But that's very important. And I remember one time John said to me when I would have all the kids, and this might have been one, by the way, thank y'all, appreciate the compliment. One particular day, I might have been complaining about, man, they leaving cups all over the place. You know what I mean? Nothing serious. And John was like, hey, man, you need to really appreciate the fact that all your cousins, everybody come to visit, they come to your house. He was like, this is the house they making memories.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, you got to remember, this is the place they're going to make those memories.
Wow.
And so, man, after that, man, I totally took ownership of that. Because what I know now is because everybody moving all over the country and we leave home and everybody chasing this dollar, nobody wants to be Big Mama no more. Nobody wants to be the patriarch and the matriarch of these families.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to bring that back, and we need to start to encourage people and embrace that.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Everybody remember if you was from New York going down to Virginia and staying at grandma's and all the cousins sleeping on the floor. Everybody remember going back to North Carolina, South Carolina, Mississippi, Alabama to visit grandma and uncles and everybody. And now think about our families, where's the house we all go to?
Wow, right.
Where's the house? And what I want to say to a lot of people is embrace that role in your family.
That's right.
Embrace that role and understand that you can be the patriarch or the matriarch of your family, and everybody come here for Thanksgiving or everybody come here for Christmas, because there's nothing like, we know what it meant for all of us to have a home base.
Right.
All right. We might go off, go to college, do whatever, but hey, we going home for the holiday.
Yeah,
right.
We going home for the summer. Everybody would come back from Detroit, Chicago, wherever, Philly, Baltimore, and come back to this place.
Yeah.
That's a special thing. And we need to not lose that in our community, because we are losing that.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure we bring that back. We need to come out with some B2M matriarch and patriarch
That's
shirts.
what they call.
Let's do
Man,
that.
anybody want to support the movement? We all patriarch and matriarch. We coming with that.
That's right. Because if
Yeah.
you watching this show, you taking on the responsibility. If you watching our show, you are saying what we talking about is important. And this is what we talking about, family.
Yeah.
We talking about family. That's all we talking
Yeah,
about here. And so that's what I want us to start embracing. And those of you out there, embrace being the patriarch of your family. Embrace being the matriarch of your family.
Identify if there is, and if it's not, like you said, be the one that steps up to do it.
He's my brother, or God is not going to put on you a duty beyond your ability
scope.
to handle it.
That's right.
And this is what I remember. I was I was working for Computers for Kids here at the time, and they sent me to get trained as a certified mentor trainer to train other mentors.
Train the mentor.
Oh, wow.
And I went down to VCU and went to the training. Everything else about the training is we normally do in our families anyway, like be positive people, all that, right? The one thing that stuck out to me, there was a research study. I think it was commissioned by Procter and Gamble, as I recall. It said that one positive connection in a troubled young person's life is enough to sustain them through their difficulties to be successful.
Wow.
That's
One
heavy.
positive connection with an adult.
Yeah.
So
That's
you can,
good.
no matter what circumstance you're coming from, and I'm sure all of you in your own lives have seen that. Like I've seen
Oh, yeah.
children just connect to someone or to me, right? And that was enough for them to come back 20 years later and it be the child that I was teaching at Albemarle High School that I absolutely said, I cannot stand him. But I just kept hanging in there with him, right? And when I was done, I was like, man, I don't know if I made a difference with him or not. And I'm up in D.C. I had moved to D.C. area and was at a restaurant up on 14th Street. I'm downstairs after work at a little happy hour or something, right? And I see this person, a student. And he came up to me, Carter, oh my God, I can't believe this is like, what, 15, 20 years after?
Wow.
He said, you made the biggest difference in my life,
Wow.
right? And I was like, okay.
Well, yeah,
like,
what
I
I
ain't,
say.
you know, I didn't, he was like, you know what? You never gave up on me.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And even though in my mind, I was like, that boy's going to jail.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just saying, but I kept
Yeah.
sowing into
You
him.
were
Yeah.
hopeful
So-
that you were
yeah.
having an impact,
Yeah.
but you ain't know how it was
So them
taking
little,
effect.
Them little cousins, everybody that's coming over your house, breaking stuff
Leaving cups.
and leaving cups around, just know that the impact you have on them, never forget. Speaking of your house, when in family, my kids have memories at your house.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Running around playing at a certain age, and they're fun memories. And one of the things we do now, and we need to talk about as a community, the reason we don't mess with each other like that no more. So
Right.
now, back then it was, you go around the family. It didn't matter if you didn't like Uncle Earl or Aunt Jessie or
Right.
the aunt always cussed everybody out, was gonna get in a fight by the time the weekend was over. Now, we used to just endure that.
Yeah.
Everybody knew what it was. Now it's like, I ain't going over there because you know she gonna be acting. But now we too good. We too good for the not best people, the people that aren't the best in our family, in our opinion.
Yeah.
We too good for that. We don't have to entertain that. When back then, mom and them was like, "Oh, you going?
Yeah.
If I care nothing about how you feel about such and such, that's your family."
And really, it really was an opportunity to learn how to deal with all different types of personalities as you
Yeah.
grow up and mature.
Right.
You know?
And I think about this too, right? People have 10, 15 people in the house and complain or whatever, a bunch of kids running around.
Mhm.
I get the challenge, right? However, now that we're older, okay, when we was younger, let me say this. At one point in time, my grandma, her 5 kids, James, me, my other cousin, James' mama, you know, all of us is in the house at one time.
Right.
And 10 people was living there.
Right,
You
right,
know,
right.
That was for a short period of time.
Yeah.
And then we complained about 10 people being over on one day, right? And now, you know, and instead of every day. And now we had a friend of ours that passed away a couple years ago, and then nobody, Brother
Yeah.
Dow passed,
Yeah.
and then nobody found him until how
Couple
many?
days.
Hey, bro, that's a lonely thing, right? Nobody want to die alone like that, you
Yeah.
know?
That's
And-
real.
And so it just,
Hey, wait, I missed this
Yeah.
one.
You talking about Brandon.
yeah, brother.
Oh
passed,
yeah, yeah,
man.
got you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Brandon.
Yeah, and it was so
It's
sad.
Travis' partner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
So just going back to how we surround ourselves with family and friends in the community, and sometimes people complain about it and people don't have it. We need it so bad.
So is that a bigger? So as parents, even not just for us, is that the biggest challenge then? Remembering what's most important.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
Always.
And seeing value in that, right?
Mhm.
Something and seeing value in that difficult aunt, you know, because now
Yeah.
you know knowing how to deal with difficult people,
Right.
and that aunt still gonna show you a sliver of love, or you're gonna learn something from it, right? Indirectly or directly, however it may be.
What we
Come
hope,
to-
what
come.
we hope to do as we raise our kids really is have them absorb all the best qualities of all the family members around them
Right.
Right.
and exclude the negative ones. Now
Yeah.
we
Right.
know the negative ones are gonna creep in there, but that's what we're really trying to do.
Mhm.
Absorb the best qualities about Uncle so and so, Aunt so and so, you know, and absorb those qualities and make it a part of who you are.
Mhm.
And then we want to reject the negative qualities. That's what we're trying to
Tilly,
do.
how would you and what would you say to people as parents? How would you address like this issue of how do you deal with challenges as a parent? What recommendation do you have for people? Like it could be from tragedy to success.
Right. I mean, if it's a tragedy situation, I think mainly, you just hopefully you got a faith based situation going on in your life, and you can just um show them some scriptures. My faith is Christianity, so I'm gonna show them some scriptures in the Bible and stuff, as well as I'm going to point out some you know situations that you can encounter that's going on around you, because there's a ton of stuff that's going on around us every day, and just embrace them and just make sure that they understanding that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One challenge that I've had, and I've worked on it pretty good, is the transition. As our kids have gotten older, that transition from when they're young and you're parenting and you're giving instruction, you're giving direction, you're giving all of this, and then they 18, 19, 20, and we got to transition from parent telling people what to do to suggesting, and being a counselor and being more of an advisor. I'm not going to tell you what to do about anything. All I can do is hope that you will come to me for counsel. And now I can give you some examples of what may have worked, what I saw work, what didn't work. Don't do this, don't do that. I'm just making suggestions now. And I have to leave room open for them not to listen to my suggestions.
That is a challenge. That's a challenge.
That's
your question that you
that's
asked
a
me
real-
a little earlier. Like,
That's
what is it
that's
now?
a real challenge,
It
man. That's a real challenge, and just being humble enough. One of the ways I try to maintain my humility and all of that is I just say to myself, man, I barely know what's best for myself sometimes. Stop trying to know what's best for everybody else.
You say that to yourself.
I say that to myself. I say that to myself because I don't know, and one of the things I did.
You damn near do know best for everybody else. I mean, I'm just saying.
But
you can't impose
you just get a
them.
bad name in the family when you do stuff like that.
One thing I
Sometimes,
always told my sons though is that as a parent, and I'm raising you and I'm giving guidance or whatever, you can look at my life as an example, whatever it is, financially, spiritually, whatever it is. You can just look at me as an example. But if you want anything more than what I have, you're going to have to figure out when not to listen to me.
Yeah.
You're going to have to figure out when, Dad, I can appreciate that advice, but I'm going to go this direction. If you want to do something bigger than what I've done, you're going to have to figure out when not to listen. I'm always going to give you information that I think is there to protect you and help you and what's best. But it's still based on my limited understanding and my knowledge and my experience. And my son's not growing up in 1985. They're growing up in 2023. And so they're going to have to move and operate in this world on an understanding that I really don't have. I can just look. I know some universal law and universal principles, but you're going to have to figure this out.
They're supposed to take it to the next level.
I got my wife's uncle. I remember when we all, most of us got married in our early 20s, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was living in Baltimore, and I'm coming out of college, revolutionary to the hilt. I'm mad at Amiri Baraka. I named my sons after Amiri Baraka and Hakeem Adabuti, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm mad at them though at this point because I'm like,
I thought Hakeem was named after me. Hakeem.
Yeah, we just changed the. Yeah. Shout out to Don Lee, aka Hakeem Adabuti, and Third World Press.
Yeah.
From the '90s, but he said some of my favorite writers, man. But I was like, man, I'm mad at all of them dudes, man. They was our age now. I was like, man, I wrote all this stuff in the '60s. Now they not doing nothing but teaching at universities and chilling. The fight is still on, right? And my wife's uncle said, just keep living. Just keep living, right?
Yeah.
And then he would say, and then I'm pushing up me. He challenging me, right? And I'm like, nah, but they not doing it. And so when he sensed my rebellion against that wisdom he dropped on me, right? And me not understanding all fully what keep living mean, he said, you know what? It might not rain today. It might not rain tomorrow. It might not rain the next day, or the next day. but you can bet your ass it's gonna rain again. Right? And so now, in me dealing with that energy with grown sons that got masculine energy, the same passion I got,
Yeah.
it's important to do what you said because you could get yourself into some situations. So now, when I butt heads with them in terms of you provide them all the info and you see them still going in the direction, you know what I say? Just keep living.
Just keep living.
Yeah.
Just keep
That's
living.
real.
Because they're going to see it.
You know, I had a similar experience with that with my grandmother. My grandma 93 right now.
Awesome.
And,
Shout out to Wayne.
Yeah, shout out
Wow,
Granny.
man, that's a blessing.
And my family was big in the Black Panther Party in the 60s and 70s.
Uh-huh.
And you know, we lost an uncle to that cause. You know, he was murdered back in the 70s. And I remember talking to my grandma, and this one like 4 or 5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, Granny, I was like, you had the big afro, y'all was a rebel, y'all was going hard for the people, going hard for the cause. And I was like, what transitioned you away from it? And she was like, that stuff was important. She was like, but after a while, she said, I realized I had given one son for the cause. I wasn't willing to give him no more.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so when I heard that, I was like, that's that keep living part
Yeah.
that you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, I done made the ultimate sacrifice for the cause.
Yeah.
And this is all I'm willing to give at this point. I'm not giving no more to this cause. It meant something. And you know, I gave one of my sons to this cause. I'm not giving no more.
And that's
And
the
so-
scripture, old men for counsel, young men for war.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to tell me. Like, you're
Yep.
going to be now advising people as opposed to a front liner necessarily, you know. So as we wrap up this episode, fellas, on our biggest challenges in parents, and of course it went into some powerful directions, what's our final advice to parents about dealing with challenges? Talik hit us up with the spiritual piece, but you know, what's the final guidance to them?
Hey, going back to what my biggest challenge was, moms, please protect your babies. And I know a lot of them do, right?
What you mean by that?
Don't just bring anybody around them kids.
Mm.
I don't care how nice you look. I don't care if you met him in church. I don't care if you're a teacher, a police officer, or what have you. Be careful about when you bring them around, right? And as a man,
So when should you bring them around?
great question. You know, hopefully that you can talk to your ex and y'all can come to an understanding about how we're going to, you know, move with this process, right?
When you
That's-
see that it's serious, I
That's
think.
the ideal.
When you know that it's serious, if they
right.
sense that they're either
When
gonna
you see a future
wed
with
or
them.
whatever in the future,
Yeah.
they, you know, don't introduce them to the children until you know
But-
you see that, you know.
But
perhaps.
a lot of these women think it's serious and it's not. So talk
Right.
about how, like,
Well, don't
I-
let them spend the night with you.
Right.
That's right.
And y'all don't have a committed relationship. And then it's somebody else next month,
Right.
you know, that you don't really know.
Exactly.
And, you know, and we got people out here doing various things. And, I mean, that's just one thing. And I'm not judging anyone. I'm just saying,
so don't
No,
let
it's-
him spend the night, but can he come to the cookout?
you come to the cookout.
He can come to the
But
cookout.
his second or third date shouldn't be the cookout though. You know.
Okay.
John
And-
don't even
and-
want the man at the cookout.
No, hey, let me say this.
Cookout at a public park.
on the flip side of that, right? So now I'm single and I'm dating again. I met sisters with kids, right? And they say, "Oh, I got a son to do it." I'm like, "That's great." And then they'll invite me to something, and I'm like, "No, I don't want to meet your child." And that put them aback, right? And I was like, "Yeah, I don't want to meet them." They're like, "Why?" That's because I love kids, but I don't play with kids like that.
Right. Yeah.
You know, we might kick it for 3
Whoa.
months or 4 months.
Because if
Bro,
I come
this
around, he gonna love me.
This is a whole nother episode.
And he
Yeah,
could be gone.
yeah, I don't
And
play.
I
You
might be
might
gone.
take that lightly. I don't. And we might kick it for 4 months, 5 months, and we might just not work out, right? We still may be cordial, but
Yeah.
I don't joke with kids like that.
Right.
You know,
Man,
because
my
that's
brother
important.
had
I
a
think
situation like
that's
that where he
important.
was dating a sister that had a son that was a toddler age. He's about the same age as my Amir is, right?
Uh-huh.
And they broke up, right? After
Uh-huh.
a couple of years. And he, in a sense, he was the only father that child knew,
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
right? And he said that when they broke up, it broke his heart. My brother,
Right.
and he can only imagine how it broke the kid's heart.
Yeah,
So that's a
yeah.
real thing you talking
Yeah.
about, man. It's
So-
like he felt like he was losing his child.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as a man, even when the lady is wanting to do that, hey, have the strength to be like, nah, not right now. We can do that. And you know if you're serious about it or not.
Yeah.
Or if you're
Correct.
just playing around.
Yeah.
You know that. So don't even go there. You know, if you're not real, serious about that.
Any other
Yeah.
final
That's good
remarks?
One shout out to my man Chris Blakey. And one day we were at the track and my son was exercising. We were getting ready for a track meet. And we encountered my man Chris Blakey. And he was sitting around, he was talking to the kids I had with me. And my one son, Darius, still talks about this to this day. And they were about 10 years old, 9, 11, 12. They were all the kids were that age. And Chris Blakey was like, hey, young people, let me tell y'all something. He said, if you don't remember nothing else, he said, I want you to remember this one thing. And he said, learn how to say no. He said, I want you to understand this at a very young age now. Learn how to say no. Because if you know how to say no, you don't have to worry about the peer pressure. You don't succumb to the drinking and the smoking and the sex and all of this stuff that you really don't want to do. Because so many times our young people, man, they out here getting themselves in mess because they pretending.
Right.
Yeah.
They pretending.
Yeah.
You know, and they really don't want to be pretending. But the reason they pretend because they don't know how to say no.
Mm.
We got to make sure our young people feel empowered to say no and stand on it when they say it and mean it and understand you don't have to give an explanation for it to nobody. When you say no, you mean it, you stand on it, and you don't owe nobody an explanation. And we need to teach our young people how to say that. And if we can do that, we will avoid a whole lot of troubles with our young people.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna put a bow on that and say the same advice goes for parents. Learn how to say no, because you're saying no about positive. You're saying no to keep yourself on a positive path.
Absolutely.
So don't say no to the dude that want to stay over and doesn't know your children well. Say no to other influences that you know aren't good for your children, even though it hurts their feelings that you're saying no. Say no about the Jordans if you can't afford them, about the Yeezys or the Louis slippers and all of this stuff in the interest of teaching them a greater principle, because at the end of the day, those challenges, if we don't win those, we will be doing a whole lot more parenting as grown-ups than we want to, right? You know what I'm saying? So that's the whole saying about if you raise your children, you can spoil your grandchildren. But if you spoil your children, you'll be raising your grandchildren. We got to avoid that, man. So this is another episode of the B2M Crew podcast, Boys and Men. For the brothers that's been together for 40 years. As y'all can see, we love chopping it up. We do this naturally, no script and all of that. Y'all can catch us at B2M Crew on Twitter, on Instagram. We got a Facebook page, YouTube channel. Support us, help us out, subscribe, like, follow the reels, do all of that. And we love to hear from you as well. Joaquin, you got anything to take us out on, brother?
Yeah, man. In the words of Frederick Douglass, it is easier to raise strong children than to repair broken men.
Just
Peace.
like that.
Peace.
And I won't stop until I'm winning. I'ma show them how true and independent get it. Whole game changed by the time I'm finished with it. We about to get this business handled in a minute. And I won't stop until I'm winning. They don't want me in the office cause I